Hello and welcome to Anxiety Hacks. I'm your host, Kate Hudson-Hall, and I am an anxiety therapist and also an author. I'm the author of a book for eating disorders called Bulimia Sucks, and also the book called Anxiety Hacks. And within the book, there's many, many different techniques to be able to help people to overcome and to begin to understand and begin to break their difficult anxiety behaviors. And like I said, there's lots of different techniques in there, from affirmations to visualizations. And I talk about EFT, emotional freedom technique, and mindfulness. So there's a lot of information in there to be able to help you to begin to change those difficult behaviors. So our guest today, our fabulous guest is Anthony Simmons. He is the world's first exercise-based therapist and owner of Fit and Well. He works with young people with a multitude of mental health challenges, including anxiety. Anthony uses movement in the form of gym workouts to teach therapeutic methods such as acceptance and commitment therapies, and then other therapies, including CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. The gym environment is a great place to challenge and explore people's challenges and relationships with anxiety. In the gym, anxiety can appear in different ways. He's going to tell us all about, from being worried about completing a movement to even just setting foot in the gym, which is a difficult one for many people. Anthony uses this space to allow people to explore their anxiety in a safe environment that steers away from traditional talk therapies. So welcome, Anthony. It's great to talk to you. I want to hear all about
this.
Thank
you.
So yeah, tell us about your journey, about how, and how you got there to be able to work with people with exercise and their difficult problems.
Yeah, so my journey for becoming an exercise-based therapist and exploring this concept, creating this concept, started in an interesting place where I was a high-level athlete and coach for several years. I think 20 years of my life was taken up by coaching and doing athletics. And at the same time, I was doing my social work degree, which I was thoroughly enjoying, and I was able to connect and work with some amazing practitioners in that journey. But what I found as I was beginning to come to the end of my social work placements and journey, is I began to find that there was lots of ways that my sport and my coaching and then also my social work degree were beginning to overlap with each other. There would be conversations I'd be having at coaching seminars where they'll be saying, "Oh, we're gonna do visualization exercises," and I would like, "Well, that's what we learn in social work. That's what we're learning around meditation and things like that." And they talked a lot about things like breath work, but in the athletics field, they were talking about like, making sure that you have good breathing, and I was like, but that's breath work. That's what we learn in social work as well. So there was all these things beginning to cross over, and I would also find that I would be using those techniques when I was coaching. So if I had a athlete who was anxious on the runway when they were doing their jumps, I would be using techniques like teaching them to breathe and teaching to use mindfulness to settle their nerves before they jumped. So I loosely started to explore this idea of weaving a therapeutic method into movement-based work back then. But then it just began to roll and roll and roll. And I started, the other thing and the main reason I started doing exercise-based therapy was after finishing my degree and continuing to do my athletics, I found that there's a group of people in our community who can't do talk-based therapy. They don't like sitting and talking. They don't like sitting in front of someone and being taught to do mindfulness in a chair. And I felt very passionate about the fact that they deserve a service as well. They deserve the chance to get support for their mental health as well. And instead of saying that they have to adapt to our service, I wanted to create a service for them. So that kind of maelstrom of mess all came together to create Fit and Well and exercise-based therapy, where we use exercise as the therapeutic tool and teach all these methods through exercise. And we really try and target those people who generally have tried traditional talk-based therapies and have just found maybe it doesn't work for them, maybe it's intimidating and the environment's not comfortable for them, and just try and work on having a space for them to talk about the challenges that they face.
So if somebody came to your gym and they wanted to, what would be the first thing that you would sort of work? How would you work with them?
It's always a really complicated complicated question, because every single person is so unique, and I know that's the nature of the job. But we get young people coming into our gym who kind of say, I want 40% talking, 60% working out. And so that's what we do. And then we have some people come to our gym and say, I want 20% working out and 80% talking. So every session is very, very unique. But all the way through it, we build therapeutic methods through our conversations and through our discussions. So if you want a general understanding, is every client will come in and we'll have a workout and we'll move around a bit. But during that session, we'll be talking through this, talking about stuff, talking about their world, talking about what's happening for them all throughout the session, sometimes between sets where they'll take a break between one exercise and we'll sit down and chat for a bit. And that's that environment we want to create for them, is that less formal counseling environment or therapeutic environment for them, where they can feel less under the spotlight. They can feel like it's more just a comfortable chat that's happening in amongst the activities we're doing.
Yeah. And so say if somebody came to you and they had anxiety, so how would that, how would how would that work?
Yeah. So it's really interesting with the clients with anxiety. It definitely manifests itself in the gym. Like it can really come out in the gym. For instance, we can see them physical signs of fidgeting before, like if I say, oh, we're about to attempt this movement, and they get fidgety and it really surfaces and comes out in the gym. They can also you can see the physical symptoms like the sweating and the shortness of breath and all sorts of stuff beginning to surface during the workouts and during movements. And so what we would do is we would take advantage of that moment and actually identify what's happening for you there, what's going on for you there, and begin to learn some techniques. So say, I'll give you a kind of a concrete example. Say a person's getting ready to do a deadlift movement.
Right.
And they're beginning to get fidgety, and you can see the anxiety, they're overthinking, you can see it all beginning to roll through, you can physically see it. So what we can do is we would say, okay, let's just take a second and let's actually practice some deep breathing through this move, like before you start this lift. So we might teach them to do a pre-lift routine where we say, I want you to take 4 deep breaths in, 4 deep breaths out. I want you to visualize the lift. I want you to visualize what it's going to feel like, to be successful, all these techniques that we would know through our methods, and then we would get them to perform the lift. So what we're doing there is we're actually teaching them the technique in the gym that they can then and then the discussion will happen post that about saying, okay, that same technique is something you can use outside of the gym when you're facing anxiety.
Excellent. So to have them visualize how they want to be in the future and work with that part of their mind to be able to guide them.
Yeah. And lots of visualization is something that I was taught as an athlete, and it's just a daily part of an athlete's life. Visualization is almost a daily thing they do when they're thinking about their goals, when they're thinking about performance anxiety. One of the big things they do is they will use visualization to reduce performance anxiety. So they'll visualize running a 100-meter race, and they'll visualize the crowd. They'll say, that's why you'll regularly hear athletes say, I've run this race 1,000 times in my head. And that's true. Yeah. They visualize so much, and they can visualize the space around them. And it's the exact same thing we teach. It's the exact same thing we do in therapy when we're teaching visualization, except they're just doing it for their sport, but the tool is the same. And so that's what we do in exercise-based therapy. We use the same tools, but we put it in the gym lens, in the space of the gym, so they can use it outside of the gym in the real world as well.
Excellent, excellent. And
Mm.
what other therapies and ways do you help people
Yeah, so
in that
we do.
situation?
Yeah, so we do lots of mindfulness. The reason we do a lot of mindfulness, yeah, we use a lot of mindfulness because mindfulness again lends itself really naturally in the gym. When you're performing certain movements, I'll use that deadlift movement again. One of the big things they say is you have to really, really have your feet planted and feel your feet below you. And it lends itself to natural mindfulness work. So, I'll say to people, okay, so we're going to take our shoes off and we're going to practice a little squat, but you've got to really focus on feeling the feet below you, feeling the ground below you, make sure your feet are, firmly, your heels are touching the ground, and really bring it into a mindfulness exercise. Now, again, the client may not recognize it as mindfulness. They see it as doing a squat,
Yeah.
but I'm bringing the mindfulness techniques into it. And we bring that into how their body responds too. So if I'm noticing that they're feeling anxious and I'm seeing those signs, I'll bring them back. What are you feeling right now? What's your body feeling right now? And they'll say, oh, I'm feeling sweaty. My heart's beating really fast. I'm like, okay, that's good. So what's happening for you now? Are you feeling comfortable? Are you feeling safe? Are you feeling insecure? What's happening here? And they often will say, oh, I'm really worried about lifting this weight. It's the first time I've done it. I'm like, that's okay. And there's a huge amount of cognitive behavioral therapy that naturally lends itself in the gym. The idea that you walk into a gym and it's about consistency and doing things consistently well is how you'll make progress. That's exactly the same as a person's journey with anxiety. It's not about you're going to walk into a therapist and you're going to leave the next day and it's going to be fine. You have to consistently work at it. You have to consistently be patient and just keep working away at it. The gym naturally lends itself to when you have a really bad day and you still show up for the workout. We talk about anxiety from that perspective. You can have really anxious days, but you can still have success on those days, and you can still do things really, really well. And another common one we get is like injuries. A great example of challenges that people face. So a client will come into us and say, "I've hurt my leg," and I'll say, "Okay, so that means we can't use your leg, but we can use a lot of your other body." And we can do upper body workouts and we can do some other things. So the gym lends itself to a lot of mindset work and cognitive behavioral therapy around changing the way you look at challenges that are facing you. So if a person comes in struggling with anxiety, we can use that same thinking process, which they might say, I'm really anxious about going to school and going into my math class, because we have a lot of young people who struggle to go to school due to anxiety. That's a common client group we work
Yes.
with.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we can say, okay, so just like with your injury, you might struggle to go to maths, but you love English. Let's start there. Let's start that journey. Let's not focus on the maths that we're struggling to get into, because in the gym we always want to focus on what you can do, not what you can't do. It's really easy to say I can't go to the gym because my leg's sore, but what we want you to say is I can't work out on my leg, but I can do a lot of other stuff. So that's what I'm going to do. So the gym lends itself to a lot of mindset work and a lot of cognitive behavioral work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the fact that you're talking about mindfulness.
Mm,
Um, for people that don't know, so mindfulness is the awareness that arises by paying attention on purpose in the present moment and not being
mm,
judgmental and giving yourself a
mm,
hard time.
mm,
That your mind keeps wandering off, and just kindly bringing
mm,
it back to the present moment, because we're hardly ever
mm,
in the present moment.
mm, mm.
And and so that's fantastic that you're incorporating that as well.
Yeah, yeah. And it lends itself again, the gym lends itself naturally to that thing, because when you're focusing on a lift, you can't be focusing on the number. You can't be focusing on a lot of other stuff. You have to focus on
Yeah.
really simple movements, really simple things. And that's what that mindfulness and the gym naturally lends itself to that space, because if you focus on other stuff, you generally will struggle to be successful in a movement. So bringing yourself back down to your breathing, bringing yourself back down to what you're feeling around you, and bringing yourself back down to really small focused areas to succeed is actually a really powerful thing that, again, this is really common in the gym. If you ask most people who work out in the gym, they'll say, yeah, that's what we do every day. And that's true. So it's just about bringing those things together, because there is an intrinsic connection between the two things.
Yeah. And
Mm,
so, taking it further with the younger person at school that's
mm,
struggling to go
mm,
to
mm,
maths,
mm, mm.
so how would you take them forward with that then?
So what we would be working with them on is we would be teaching them techniques in the gym and then transferring those skills out. So again, it's that mindset position about saying that you might struggle with maths, but what are the other areas you can have success in? We teach them a lot around goal setting because again, that's a natural part of the gym is goal setting and taking small steps towards goals. So saying, okay, so your goal is to lift 20 kilos in a bench press. We're going to talk about the journey it's going to take to get there. And this is how we're going to do it. We piece it together really tiny steps at a time. And that's how we're going to get there. Um, that exact same process is how we would approach how we're going to get back into maths. Okay, so we want to get back into maths. What are the tiny steps we're going to take to get there? Not we're going to go into maths. That's the end point. That's a long way away. Let's start with the first step. And the first step could be simply, I'm going to go to school for half a day. I'm going to go to 3 of my lessons. And that's not going to be maths, but then I'm going to go home. We take a tiny step each day kind of to get better towards it. The other thing the gym lends itself to is you have bad days, you get injured, pivoting with goals and adapting quickly to changes in situations. So say you've set that goal to bench press 20 kilos in 10 weeks, but in week 6 or 7, you get injured. And so suddenly you have to adapt the goal and you have to pivot and kind of say, okay, so we've got injured. We're not going to get to that 20 kilo bench press in week 10. We might get there in week 15. So here's how we're going to approach that. So you can actually
Mm.
teach them to be adaptable with their goals really quickly. And
Mm.
that can be powerful for young people with anxiety because it's also that fear of failure that comes into it. But one of the things again, naturally happens in the gym is failure is a part of the gym. It has to be a part of the gym. If you're pushing yourself safely, but to your limit, you will fail. You have to fail at some point. And teaching young people to look at failure as not a personal affront, rather it's a piece of data that you can
Learning.
use learning, yeah, and a piece of data to look at. Okay, so we failed. Why? Why did we fail? Was there areas we didn't look at? Was there in the gym? Was there exercises that we didn't excel at? And we didn't work as hard in certain areas as we should have. So we look at that failure, learn from it, and then try again. And the same goes for that young person getting to school. If they can learn that they go to school and they don't get into math the first time they try, we can learn a lot from that instead of looking at it as a complete failure. And again, that's a natural part of the gym. If you ask any high level gym person who goes to the gym regularly, any high level athlete, they'll say hundreds of failures all the time, but they don't look at failure the same. They look at failure as just I tried and I want to learn what I need to work on. That's how they look at it. So it's a very different mindset. And that's one thing we talk a lot about at Fit and Well is that athlete's mindset or the
Yeah.
elite athlete mindset and trying to teach young people the elite athlete mindset because it is teachable. The
Yeah.
people you see on TV have learned it over time. They didn't start with it. It's not something they start with naturally. They get taught it over time and they apply it to their life. So yeah, getting the gym allows them to flex around that mindset a bit more.
Yeah. And so, how else would you help somebody with anxiety?
Mm-hmm. So the other stuff, there is also just that surface level of getting people moving. Like there is just purely that surface level of getting people moving for an hour at a time. So we know the studies and statistics around how important exercise is for mental health.
Mm.
So just some people, it is just so with anxiety, it is just the simply getting them moving for an hour a week is an hour every couple of weeks is really, really powerful for
Yeah.
them.
And like you're saying, it's
Um,
figuring out those steps of how you can do that and taking it
yeah, yeah,
step by step.
yeah, because some of these people have never ever even been in a gym before. They've never set foot in a gym before. So there's an actual anxiety there, and again, it's that real life anxiety that's happening in front of me, and yet I can teach them that they are able to do stuff. So they are able to move, they are able to work out in the gym, they do gain confidence through that. So one thing we find with it is there's a lot of people with anxiety who come through our gym who then will walk away just with that sense of self-confidence because they've done something that they never thought they could do. And that's one
Yeah.
of the big fears that
Yeah.
often attaches to anxiety, is that fear of like trying something for the first time. Yeah, what we do is we give them a safe environment to try something for the first time, and they often will have that sense of success, and then they think, well, I can try something else for the first time, and that's where they begin to build confidence in trying things and exploring what they can do, kind of thing. So it's a really rewarding job as well, I must say.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. Um,
Mm.
and so Anthony, so how can people, find you? See, we've got the Facebook page that we're going to put
Mm.
down below.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
what sort of information is on there for people to?
Yeah, so we do lots of different posts on our Facebook. We mainly use the Facebook page as a place where we send out little exercise sort of routines. We send out little connections that people can use in the gym if they go to the gym if they go to the gym away from like on their own, and how they can include exercise-based therapy, just little techniques they can use in their gym programs, kind of thing like that. So talking about breathing through squat movements, talk about that kind of thing. We also use it as a place to support practitioners who may be beginning to explore exercise-based therapy for the first time and beginning to introduce them to what that can look like. Because I have a gym, but exercise-based therapy doesn't need to happen in a gym. It can be done in an office. It just looks a bit different, but the principles can be transferred from a gym to an office quite easily. And we also have a lot of like testimonies and kind of like examples of how, exercise-based therapy can be used in a day-to-day life by a person, not just a practitioner, by a person who's just at home, kind of thing like that, and may explore stuff, because it can be transferred into just everyday life as well. And developing that mindset is something that can be developed in to everyone.
So if they were to do exercises at home.
Yeah, yeah, we could work. We would be using. You could use exercise-based therapy simply at home, if you're doing home-based exercises around like learning to do your breath work through movement, learning to do the mindfulness through different movements, learning to do learning to how we learning how to create goals, evaluate goals, thinking about failure, reframing failure, which is again something we're deeply passionate about, is reframing failure if you do experience failure, and just developing that strong mindset around that strong athlete mindset is how we refer to it.
And so that information is on your Facebook.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
And
excellent.
we post every few days, so there would be a fair bit of stuff in there.
To churn through. And so do you work with people online?
We haven't done any work online. It's something we're exploring, but one thing we're doing a lot of is connecting with people and practitioners online and supporting them in introducing exercise-based therapy with their clients. So often we'll get practitioners saying to us, "Oh, I've got a client who's doing this, this, and this. We'd like to explore exercise-based therapy," and that's when we would come in with them and support them with that. And we could talk to them about how they could design a session, how they could build a session around that. And it doesn't even need to be complex. It can be something as simple as we've had clients who use walking as their exercise-based therapy, just simple walking. And we talk about how you can use an activity as simple as walking and build exercise-based therapy around it. But then we've also got clients who kind of have said, practitioners come to us and said, we want to, try and achieve something. We want to really challenge this person. And I think one of the practitioners we worked with actually said, oh, how about we try to do a fun run? And we kind of made a plan. We made a whole plan. I think it was over 20 weeks building up towards this fun run. And we talked about, mindset. We talked about the physical training. We talked about goal setting. We ride that journey with that practitioner because they had setbacks, and we talked about how we can use these setbacks as really positive conversation points and stuff like that. So that whole journey was just really rich with opportunities to have conversations about that client's challenges and what was happening with them in their training and how it's similar to what was happening to them in their life.
Yeah, to be able to help them, to guide them, to be able to work through their difficult behaviors or whatever it may be.
Yeah, because again, it's that natural link that going to a gym is a journey in itself. Setting yourself a goal to lift a certain weight, and you're going to have setbacks, you're going to have failures, you're going to have disappointing times, you're going to have times where things go wrong, and that's the same as life. And the kind of
Absolutely.
the parallels are right there, that you can just be like, right, you failed in the gym, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to move past that? And same question gets asked in life. You failed at this, that's okay, what are we going to do next?
Yeah. Life is like a roller coaster, so we need all the help we can get.
Yeah, it's good
And
fun.
so Anthony, what is the name of your Facebook page?
So we're facebook.com/fitandwell Adelaide, ADELAIDE.
Okay, good. But we'll have the link down below, like I said. So that's really, so that's excellent. Oh gosh, well, thank you so much for all of this, I don't know, it's such relevant information for people to learn from, and to start to sort of maybe introduce it into their everyday lives, especially if they can hop onto your Facebook and get some more information, to help them with their anxiety.
Yeah, we would love to support people and love to support them with their anxiety or their journeys in general, because it's something that we are deeply passionate about, and especially for those people who maybe struggle to talk about their anxiety, it also could be a way to actually explore it in another way that is more relevant to them and they feel more connected to.
Yeah. Fabulous. So that's excellent. Well, thank you so much, Anthony, for joining us and sharing all of this valuable information.
Thank you, Kate. It's been wonderful having a chat.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody for listening. So that is the end of the podcast for today. Before we go, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Apple iTunes or wherever you listen, and leave us a 5-star review if you feel like it. That would be fantastic. And I look forward to speaking to you in the next episode.